Okay, thank you for your patience. Let's go ahead and get started. My name is Michael Williams, as most of you probably already know, and today we are going to jump into a very important topic, a very important subject that impacts a lot of people when they speak, and it's this idea of thinking about, caring about, in a sense, which is not a bad thing, what other people think, what other people might say. In fact, I was talking with a client yesterday. We were talking via chat, and he's a coaching client. He's doing an excellent job. He's really doing well. And one of the things that happened to him is that he had a meeting. So I chatted with him to find out how the meeting went, and we were talking about that. And he said, well, I didn't articulate as well as I would have liked. I said, well, did you articulate better than you did before? Did the meeting go better than it did before? Did you present better than you would have before? He said, yes, of course I did. But then he said, but I had this feeling, and I was thinking, what's going to happen if I start using my new style? And we'll talk about that in just a moment. What are they going to think if I start speaking this way, if I start using my new style? And we talked a little bit about that. In fact, I said that's exactly what we're going to talk about today in this webinar, that often what happens is that we care about what other people are going to think about us, or what they might say, and so we don't do things that's going to be best for us and ultimately best for them too. And what I mean by that is that sometimes people would rather stutter or speak the way they have been speaking rather than speaking in a smoother, more fluent and confident way. Does that make sense? And I know this is true because many of my clients have said the same thing, if not all of them, but many of them. And I've heard from probably thousands of people who have said the same exact thing. But not only does it happen to people when they speak, it happens in all aspects of life. Athletes, politicians, anything where you have to perform, people that play instruments, right? Anytime that you have to perform, it could even be in a conversation. Whenever you have to perform, sometimes there is this degree of self-consciousness that happens where you become hyper-aware of, for example, how you're speaking, how you're playing in a particular sport, how you're playing an instrument, right? How you're giving a presentation, how you look, how you're walking, all these things become hyper-aware. And what happens then is you don't do it as smoothly as you trained, as smoothly as you would like. And the reason is because of judgment, believe it or not, because of judgment. There's a good book called Choke that you might want to read or take a listen to, because I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but it talks about why people choke, okay? And one of the reasons is because of judgment, fear of judgment. So studies were done that showed that when a person had to give a presentation and they had no fear of judgment, that is, they just had to prepare the presentation and give it, it showed that they were calm, they were more relaxed, they were okay. But as soon as they knew, now watch this, as soon as they knew that they had to present this presentation that they were preparing to someone else, well, their heart rate went up, some of them started to sweat, they got nervous, they felt very anxious. It hadn't even happened yet, right? But just the anticipation of being judged by someone caused them to become more what? More anxious. So it's this fear of judgment, it's this thinking about what someone else might say, what someone else might think if I do this. And this is so very common for all of us, right? Or for most of us. So this webinar is entitled, I don't care what others think, I can say this. You could also entitle this, I don't care what others think or what others say, I can say this, or I can say what I want to say. Okay, so you can actually pick your own title. But the title is very important. I don't care what other people think. I can say this, or I can say what I want to say. I want you to think about that statement because it's very, very important, and we're actually going to talk about why that's important in just a moment. So what happens is then, when we care too much, and I'm not saying that you should be arrogant, you just, I don't care what they say, I'm just going to say whatever I want to say, right? I'm not saying that you should have that kind of an attitude, but what I am saying is that when we care too much about what someone else might think, what they might say, what it can do is it can paralyze us and prevent us from using our new speaking style, from being able to say what we want to say when we want to say it. It can paralyze us from being a smoother, more fluent, and confident speaker, just by caring too much about what someone else might say. Now, what I'm going to try to do is to bring Mona in because she's got a really good example of how this actually works when we care too much. So I'm going to try to bring her in right now. Let's try to switch over to her. Okay, Mona, go ahead and
Okay,
share your
can you hear me? Can you hear me? My name is Mona MacDonald. Is that okay? Michael, can you hear me?
There is going to be a delay, so just go ahead and then it'll pick up.
Okay. Well, just like Michael said, caring about what other people say is something that I did my entire life until recently. And just like I'm sitting here talking to you, I never would have felt confident pausing, taking pauses, and not feeling the need to rush when I talk. For some reason, I did that because I thought people wanted me to hurry up and say what I had to say because I had a speech impediment. And it's really freeing to know that I don't have to rush. And I have a feeling now that I talk to people that people want to hear me because what I have to say is important. And now that when I talk to people, I think, you know what? I don't care what that person is saying about me. I don't care if they are thinking bad about me, thinking good about me. Now, realizing that all of this is inside of my mind, I'm not actually voicing it. But it's really powerful that I just don't care. I talk without hesitation, without thinking about the other person and what they're thinking about me. But I think about my message, and I know that what I'm telling that person is important. And I tell you what, there's nothing like it, even when I'm on the phone, when I talk to my family, when I talk to my supervisor. I don't hesitate because I have something important to tell them. So it's really, really good.
Thank you, Mona. I really appreciate that. Uh, so what Mona was basically affirming is that this is a reality in many of our lives, and the fact is that it happens to a lot of people. It happens to the greatest, right? The greatest speakers, the greatest athletes, the greatest uh, artists, right? This thing happens to us, but once we learn how to develop this attitude of I don't really care what other people think, and I wouldn't articulate it. Like I wouldn't go out and say, I don't care what you think. I'm going to say, like, if you're talking to your boss, right? You don't want to say, I don't care what you think. I'm going to speak smoothly. So I'm not, I'm not advocating that you go out and that you articulate this thought. But you do want to have this kind of an attitude because it will help you tremendously. So, what is it that you and I can do to develop this kind of an attitude that says, you know what, I'm going to say what I want to say in the way that I want to say it, and when I want to say it? What can we do to develop this kind of an attitude that we can take with us each and every day. And no matter the situation, whether you're at work, you're in a meeting, you're in an important conversation, you're on the phone, you're ordering food, how can we develop this attitude and maintain it? And that's what we're going to look at today. The way that you can develop this kind of an attitude is by using a couple of tools that are closely related. You and I often talk to ourselves. We always talk to ourselves, right? We might not have a conversation, like I might not say, hey, Michael, how you doing today? Oh, man, I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Michael? Right? I might not do that. But we have this inner dialogue that's going on, thoughts that are passing through our minds. And sometimes we capture those different things. And often these thoughts are negative. We're complaining about something, we're worried about something, or we're beating ourselves up about, okay, why didn't I do that? I should have been able to do that. Why didn't I say that? Why can't I? So it's all these different thoughts. So inner dialogue. And what we have to do is learn how to be very careful and controlling over this inner dialogue, over what we are saying to ourselves, or what we're thinking, right, or what we're feeling ultimately, which then impacts our behavior. We have to be very careful about what we listen to, and what we read, what we watch, and the conversations that we participate in, because we learn and we become the people that we are through our experiences. And then how do we experience things? Well, we experience things through our senses. Granted, we can also experience things on a spiritual level, but one of the ways that we experience things is through our five senses. Some of us might say we also have that sixth sense. But let's talk about the five for now, right? So we experience things by seeing them, by hearing them, by touching, manipulating, right? By acting, doing, tasting, smelling, right? I don't know if I missed them, but if I did, you can type it in. So we have these senses. This is how a baby learns, right? Through the senses. Baby likes to put everything in their mouth. That is one of the ways that they grow up and learn things. They want to touch stuff. So we learn from our environment. So we have to be very careful about our environments, because it's going to impact our thinking. And our thinking is going to impact our feelings, which is going to impact our attitudes, our mood, our beliefs, as well as our actions. And we're talking about our speech. It's going to impact how we speak. So it starts up here. So let's back up a little bit. You are going to have to be very careful about what you say to yourself, about what you think on an ongoing basis, because it is going to impact how you speak. Does that make sense? It's going to impact how you speak. It's going to impact what you believe about yourself as a speaker. Let me just give you an example. Many people say, I'm a stutterer, right? And if you've been following any of my stuff, you'll notice that I don't really like to use the word stuttering. Sometimes kind of have to. But if you enter into any of my approaches or programs or coaching, one of the first things we tackle is you don't say, I am a stutterer. If you have to say anything, you might say, sometimes I stutter. That's if you only have. But what I want you to start saying is that I'm an excellent speaker, right? So why would you want to say I'm an excellent speaker if currently you stutter? Well, if you continue to tell yourself, right, if you continue to tell yourself, I'm a stutterer or I stutter, then what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? If you continue to tell yourself that, right, this inner dialogue, you keep telling yourself that, so you keep thinking it, you're going to continue to stutter, right? But if you tell yourself you're an excellent speaker, some people might think, well, I'm lying to myself, and why should I do that? And isn't being a stutterer a part of our identity? Well, let's address those things. You can't become an excellent speaker while at the same time tell yourself that you're a stutterer or that you stutter. Why? One word: two words, the brain. The brain. The brain doesn't want to exert or use any more energy than it has to, right? So it doesn't really like to do new things. It doesn't like to learn new things. It wants to conserve energy, conservation of energy. If it can conserve energy, it does. How does it conserve energy? By turning things into habits. Right? You and I don't have to think about how we do a lot of things that we do. We don't have to think about walking, tying our shoes. Often we don't have to think about fixing our coffee, driving to work. We already know how to do that. Driving the car, riding a bike. There are so many things. We're not brushing our teeth, right? We have to think about those things because the brain, after we initially learned them, pushed them into our habit center so that it didn't have to exert energy thinking about those things. So the brain doesn't really like new stuff. Where am I going with this? Okay, because it doesn't like new stuff. Then, when you and I begin to think about, right, speaking in a new way, if we begin to think about speaking in a new way, the first thing the brain does is says, no, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. Right? The brain just says, no, no, no. I want to stay the way I was. And the way I was, or the way I am now, is that I stutter. Now, you may not actually hear this, but this is what the brain is doing. You kind of sense or feel that impression. So the brain wants to maintain things the way it is so it can conserve energy. It doesn't want to try to speak in a different way or try to speak more fluently. That's why you get that resistance. That's why it's so difficult to do something new, okay? Because the brain doesn't want to. Now, how do we learn new things? How do we develop new skills and new habits and new patterns of thinking and speaking? By understanding exactly what we need to do, right? So you know, okay, if I want to do this, if I want to learn how to play the piano, then I have to do these things. And then by repeating it over and over and over again. Think of a baby. Let's say a baby that crawls, hasn't learned how to walk yet, wants to learn how to walk. It just instinctively wants to learn how to walk. So let's say the baby just tries to walk and it's fumbling and it's falling all over the place. And then all of a sudden it just says, you know what, I'm just kind of tired of just falling. This is too hard. I'm just going to continue to crawl. So we would all just be crawling for the rest of our life if we didn't continue trying over and over until we finally got it. So it's very uncomfortable. It could also be very painful, right, to learn something new, but ultimately we learn it and then we don't have to think about it anymore. Speaking is the same thing. So if you tell yourself that I'm a stutterer, that I stutter, then the brain says, okay, that's great. This is exactly where we want to be because I have to think about doing anything new. If you start telling yourself I'm an excellent speaker, you're probably going to get some resistance. But guess what? That resistance, that pain that you may experience is absolutely what? Necessary. It's necessary to grow and to learn a new skill, a new speaking style. But what does the brain want to do? Now here's the good part. If you're working on this new speaking style, you're working on this new way of thinking, the brain is going to, as quickly as it can, turn it into a habit so you don't have to think about it anymore. Does that make perfect sense? So all you have to do is continue trying, right? Every time you go to speak or every time you think, you tell yourself, I'm an excellent speaker. And you may get those other thoughts that now you're about to stutter, you're a stutterer, I'm a stutterer. And you just substitute those with, I'm an excellent speaker, I'm a great speaker, I'm a superior speaker. Or in this case, you know what? I don't care what others think. I can say what I want to say. I can say this. You just keep telling yourself that, and you'll get that initial resistance. That may last for a while, but eventually the brain accepts it and says, okay, this is our new way of thinking. So what you're doing is you are actually programming yourself. You're actually programming yourself. Think of yourself as a programmer. So you're programming yourself. So what's the solution then? All right, so we started out saying that what we want to do is we want to control, we want to watch what we're thinking, right? And we know that what we think impacts our feelings, which ultimately impacts our behavior and our speech. So we want to control that. We want to watch it. We want to have an inner dialogue that supports us and encourages us and takes us where we want to go. Where do we want to go? We want to be smooth, fluent, confident speakers. We want to be able to say what we want to say when we want to say it. How do we do it? What's the solution? The solution is to learn how to program or reprogram yourself. So what I'm going to do is to give you a couple of very clear steps on how you can reprogram yourself so that when you get in any situation where you feel like, you know what, I might get kind of anxious because I might start to feel like I'm going to be judged. A public speaking situation, or if you have to do a meeting or an interview or go order food. Those are all situations where you might feel like you're going to be judged. So I'm going to give you a very practical solution, at least 2 things that you can start doing immediately to reprogram your thinking, which will then impact how you feel, which will then impact your speech. Now, I believe, and I'm just going to jump over here and see, I think Mona has also some examples of things that we can do. I think she has some insight into how we can reprogram ourselves, and definitely some examples, right? Some examples of how we can do that. So I'm going to shift over to Mona real quick, and give me just a moment. All right, Mona, did you have something, and if you don't, that's okay, but I know that we had talked about a couple of things when we started talking about the solution. So did you have a couple of things that you wanted to share in terms of your experience with this reprogramming process?
Yes, I do. I have so much to say, but I'll be focused. I do have many examples. I'm going to just start with this example. My job is an office manager, and basically what I do is handle a lot of executives and organizing their day, both professionally and personally. I have to communicate often. I have to schedule meetings and talk to outside people and inside people. There's a lot of talking and a lot of communicating. So before I started the program, my entire day was filled with dread. Dread of talking to people on the phone, people approaching my desk, asking for help. I thought about my words, how I'm going to say things, anticipating stuttering on certain things. It was horrible. I was so anxious and horrified and told myself bad thoughts about me not being able to speak, that I couldn't talk. People, this is what I was thinking, that people was perceiving me as unintelligent, that I wasn't worthy. It was very, very bad. So I didn't realize my self-talk, my negative self-talk. And one particular example is my boss had a meeting, and I had to go into the meeting and explain to them what type of food was being served. Oh my God. I dreaded the entire experience. For one, the room was filled with about 40 to 50 people. That's number one. And for number two, there was food on the table that I had trouble saying, like potatoes, and there was, I believe, a tuna casserole. Just everything was horrific. So this was early on when I started the Pro 90D. Early on, I was so nervous. But what I did was I imagined that I wasn't myself. I modeled. And so I just imagined that I was Michael Williams when I walked into that room. Everything from my stance, the way I stood, the way I looked, the way I addressed the crowd, everything. So I just basically forgot about the audience, forgot about those people looking at me. And I proceeded in talking and said, listen, this is the potato casserole. This is the salad. We have iced tea and tuna casserole. I think it's going to be delicious. It was amazing. Not only did I imagine that I was him, but I dramatically slowed my tone, not tone, I dramatically slowed down my pace, and amazingly, I was able to speak. And afterwards, I noticed, now remember, this is early on when I first started the program, but afterwards, I noticed that I was telling myself good things like, I did it. I'm a great speaker. I can talk to anybody. I can say potato. I can say tuna casserole. It was then I noticed that I was telling myself bad things in the past, and I worked actively to stop talking negative about myself and my speech. So I hope all of that makes sense. But that's just one example. I have many.
Thank you, Mona.
You're welcome.
All right, let's switch back over here. So she said a lot, and what I'm going to do is really kind of support what she said with some very specific steps, some actions, some strategies, some tactics that you can take to begin talking to yourself differently. Some of these things you've heard before, but I want to make it very specific to this situation, whereas you go in a situation and you just start, and you might even think to yourself, I'm not going to start speaking this way because I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know what they might think of me if I start speaking this way. And this often happens around friends, even around family, or in certain situations where people have seen you as you have been, right? People have seen you as you have been. And even though perhaps as you have been has been disfluent, you still might say, I'm not sure if I want to use this new style, even though it's more fluent, but it just feels strange. It's probably going to be strange to them. So I'm going to give you some specific steps that you can use to deal with that. Okay. Number one. I'm not going to write all of this on the board, but we'll write just a little bit of it. Number one, we already talked about, and it's called self-talk. Right? You've all heard about this before. It's nothing new. It's called self-talk. And one of the ways, or a couple of ways, that you can change your self-talk, your inner dialogue, one of the ways that you can do that is by doing what? What do you guys think? Let me just go to the chat box here. Type in any examples, any things that you feel like, that you think that you can do to change your inner dialogue or self-talk. While you're typing, I'm going to keep talking. One of the things that you can do is to create what we call an affirmation, right? You can create an affirmation. And I usually talk about the 3P formula, but we can modify that a little bit. And what I mean by the 3P formula is we're using first person, I, present tense, for example, can, and then a positive, I can say this. Now I know the statement I made before is I don't care, which is kind of negative. And that's kind of an exception to the rule, that if you think, you know what, I don't care what other people think, I can say this. That's something that's almost like a kick in the butt, right? Something that can really motivate you. So in some cases, using somewhat or partial effort, a partial negative affirmation can be helpful, okay? And this is one of those cases. So you can tell yourself, right, using a 3P formula, I don't really care what other people think, but I can say this, and I'm going to say what I need to say. So by saying I don't care what other people think, what you're doing is you are combating that thought that I do care what other people think and they might not like the way I'm speaking, right? So you're kind of neutralizing that. You're neutralizing, saying I don't care what other people think. So what do? Number one, you create an affirmation for yourself. And one of those affirmations in this situation can be, and you can modify this, I don't care what they think. I can say this. I'm going to say what I want to say. So create affirmation. Another way to say an affirmation to yourself is actually to use the word you. I do this often. Sometimes I like using you better than I. I might say, Michael, you can do this. You can do this. So you can talk to yourself. Sometimes you have to give yourself a good talking to. You can do this if you really want to. You can say this. You can do this presentation well if you want to. Okay. So you can use the word you. All right. So the first step, if you will, or strategy, is to begin to talk to yourself on a regular basis, every day, all day long. Why? Because we do it anyway. We do it anyway. And often we do it to the detriment of ourselves. We say negative things. So what I'm asking you to do is to take control of this powerful process and say positive and affirming things to yourself. And how do you do that? By saying, I can do this. I don't care what this person thinks. I can do this, right? I can say this. So you say it. Or you say, you know what? You can say this. You don't really care what they think about you because you can say this. That's number one, self-talk. I've only got two. Here's the second one. So you have self-talk. Then you also have what we call this is auto. Okay. This is hetero. What do you think we mean when we say hetero? Hetero means other, right? So we can have auto affirmations, right? Auto affirmations. We can also have hetero affirmations. Hetero affirmations. This is when you have someone else say something positive to you. You have someone else say something positive to you. Remember when we said earlier that we need to watch the conversations that we engage in. We watch who we talk to. We watch what we listen to, what we think about, right? Because all these things impact because they're coming in through our environment, and it's how we learn. It's how we become the people that we are. So hetero affirmations simply means listening to a series of affirmations from someone else. Now, I'm not talking about subliminal affirmations, that is affirmations or instructions that you can't hear. I'm talking about affirmations or words that you can hear. So, several months back, probably last year, I designed my first affirmations audio program. And many people have been listening to it. It had a little music behind it, and some people liked it, and maybe some people didn't. But it's very powerful because all you have to do is kind of listen to it. But I also had people do breathing exercises and so forth and so on. So that was one form. And there are other people that have great affirmation CDs and audios and things out there as well. But what I've done now is I've created something called the Passive Learning Power. It's the Mental Trainer Passive Learning Power Program. And it's a relatively short program. It's only 5 audios. And you really only have to listen to about 3 of them on a regular basis. But they're targeted to certain things. They're targeted to certain things. And what this is me essentially speaking to you, telling you that you can do this, that you are this way, right? That you are an excellent speaker. You can say this. You can take your time, and all those sorts of things. Now, have you ever learned a song just by listening to the song over and over? How many of you have ever done that? Raise your hand. I can see you, actually. While growing up, or even as an adult, you heard something over and over and over again, and you just started to sing it. You started to say it. It could be a commercial, it could be a tune or whatever. You just started to say it over and over and over because what? You had heard it over and over and over again, and it just, you didn't try to learn it, you just learned it automatically. That's exactly what this does. It's called passive learning. It's called passive learning. And this is the way that I learned a lot of what I know. And this is kind of how I got started, just listening to audios for thousands of hours now, thousands of hours of listening to audio. I have a whole library from audible.com, and I have other audios in here, on my computer, everywhere that I listen to on a regular basis. And the beauty about passive learning is all you have to do is listen. It doesn't get any easier. So, two ways that you can reprogram yourself so that when you're in a situation, and all of a sudden you start anticipating, oh, I gotta say my name, I gotta introduce myself, or oh, I gotta do this presentation. I don't think I can use this new style because it feels kind of funny, right? Two things that you can do to change that thinking is, number one, talk to yourself different, right? So you start saying these affirmations. You know what? I don't care what they think. I'm going to speak the way I need to speak, right? You just keep saying it. You keep saying it. The second way is to, on a regular basis, on a daily basis, plug in to a series of powerful affirmations. It doesn't get any easier because you don't have to do anything. I'm not even asking you to think. I ask you to repeat in there, but you don't even have to do that. You can just listen to it every single day. And what it does is eventually you will begin to respond differently. So let's just say you don't feel like doing any practice. You say, Michael, I think your program works, but I don't really feel like changing my speaking style. I don't really feel like doing this. Just listen. All you got to do is listen, because what eventually is going to happen is you're going to start thinking differently. You're going to get in a situation and you're going to hear this affirmation say, you know what? I can say this. You can say this. Yeah, I can say. And then you're going to take a step and say something that you didn't think you were going to be able to say. How do I know this? I have clients telling me this every day, every single day. They tell me this exact thing. I was in a situation where normally I wouldn't have spoken up, but because I've been listening to these affirmations and I've been doing different things, I went ahead and I said something and it came out fine. And what does that do? That reinforces your confidence. Remember the confidence cycle that I've talked about before? Not today, but in other sessions. That means if you're confident, often you will perform better, competence. And when you perform better, it reinforces your confidence because you say, you know what? I can do it because I did it. I did it in that situation. So it reinforces, and it's a cycle. Okay. So by listening to this, you will feel more confident to go out and do things you would have done, which will then give you more speaking successes, more successful speaking situations and experiences. Makes sense, right? The other thing that will happen is, let's say you don't really feel like practicing, so you just listen to it, and you start to see some successes, and you start to feel differently. You're going to say, you know what, this is so awesome, this works so well, I feel so confident, I'm going to take this to the next level. I don't want to just not stutter, I want to become an excellent speaker, superior speaker. So then you're going to be more motivated to take the next step, whether it's with me or with someone else, doesn't matter. But you're going to be more motivated to take the next step. So program yourself or let someone else provide you with encouraging words, affirming words on a regular basis. So how does this kind of hetero affirmations or passive learning, right, let's call it passive learning, how does it actually work? Well, what you want to do is you want to listen to it every day, at least 5 days a week. Every day, at least 5 days a week. Why? Because the more you listen to it, the more it's going to become a part of your thinking. So for how many weeks? I recommend starting with 30 days and probably going out to at least 90 days. Okay, at least 90 days. And you're going to start to think, feel, and behave differently as a result of that within 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So you're going to start to see some differences if you just keep listening. One of my clients says, you know what, I'm speaking slower and more smoother. I don't even know when it happened. It just started to happen. So that's the power of this thing, is that sometimes you're not even going to know that it's happening, and you're not going to know when it happens. It's just going to happen. And other times, you're going to feel it, and you're going to know it. Okay. So if you're listening to it and you're saying, I don't really feel anything, I don't even see any difference in the way that I'm thinking, just keep listening to it. Remember the brain, it takes time. Right? Just keep on listening to it. I guarantee you, and I don't always guarantee stuff because I don't know what people are going to do or not do, but I guarantee you, if you listen to this for 90 days, right, that if you do this process, whether it's with me or someone else, again, you do this process for 90 days, I guarantee you you're going to see a tremendous, incredible transformation in your thinking, in your feeling, and in your behavior or in your speech. Guaranteed. Now, to what degree, it depends on the person. Some people, this is going to take them as far as they need to go. Other people, it's going to take them a lot further than what they thought. And then they may have to do a little work after that to go the rest of the way. But I guarantee it. And in fact, I guarantee it so much that if any of you actually decide to get the passive learning program and it doesn't work, I'm going to give you your money back. And you'll hardly ever hear me say that. Another thing that you'll hardly ever hear me say is that something is easy. In fact, you'll always hear me say it's hard. It takes time. You have to work hard, right? So whenever you're building a skill, it is going to be hard, generally. It is going to take time, right? You are going to have to be patient and work hard at it. But in this case, using this process, right, it's easy because all you have to do is what? Starts with an L. It's just listen. It's just listen. Just listen to it each and every day. And by doing that, you're learning passively. It's just going in there. It's soaking in. It's like swimming in a pool of positive, encouraging words each and every day. And then you get out and you just soak with it. It's in your pores. And you may not know that it's actually helping you, but all of a sudden it will. So two ways. So let's say, well, Michael, that sounds great, but I don't think I want to do the passive learning thing. I don't think I want to spend any money or whatever. Fine. Then use the self-talk, right? Use the self-talk. Begin to program yourself by telling yourself in this specific situation, I don't care, which removes that judgment factor that we started talking about. Right? It's that judgment. So when you start telling yourself, I don't care, it frees you up. You're no longer self-conscious. So one of the things that happens is that people, they fear what other people are going to say. They have this lack of self-confidence. They become very anxious and self-conscious, hyper self-conscious, right? And so it interferes with their performance. It interferes with their performance. But when you begin to say, you know what, I am an excellent speaker. I don't really care what other people think. I'm going to do this. And even if I mess up, I'm still going to do this. And I'm going to keep doing it until I get it right. If you start saying that to yourself, you start thinking that, again, I guarantee you, you're going to start to see somewhat incredible results, some incredible transformation in both your thinking, your feeling, and your behavior or your speech. Guaranteed, because it's how our brain works. You're already experiencing it, but probably in a negative way. So we're just taking something that's already true and we're using it in a positive way. Makes sense, right? Now, you want to multiply this process, then you want to take a look at the mental trainer passive learning power. So what I'm going to do now is give you an opportunity to, and I don't really see anyone else typing anything else into the chat box, but if you have any questions and if you're able to access the chat box, please go ahead, type in those questions, and I'll try to get to them as I go and sit down. But I'd like to give Mona an opportunity to just wrap us up with any additional comments. And while she's doing that, I'm also going to post a short poll, very, very short. I'm going to post that for you to answer if you can. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to take advantage of something. So give me just a second. Okay, so what you see there is an opportunity to take advantage of the mental trainer that, if you go to my website, you'll usually see that it costs $97. The mental trainer is an audio program, audio only, because I only want you to listen to it. It's only 41 minutes long. You're saying $97, that's a lot of money, but it's going to grow because I'm going to be adding targeted sessions to it. So it's not just that. There's some other bonuses included to get started speaking now. My original affirmations program, Impress, and there's another bonus in there that I can't remember right now, but there's another bonus included in there as well. This program is going to grow because I'm going to be developing supplementary sessions for this. You can take advantage of it for the next 24 hours for 30% off. Okay, just 24 hours, 30% off. You're going to want to get this. You can join a Facebook group. You can talk to people that are using it. You already know that it works because we already know if we listen to something long enough, it's going to have an impact. So it's not a matter of, well, I'm not so sure if it's going to work. It's going to work because it's already working, right? We already do this. So again, it's definitely going to work. It's just a matter of, are you going to do it? And all you have to do is just listen to it. That's it. You don't have to say anything. You don't even have to repeat anything. Just listen to it every single day. 5 sessions right now. There's going to be more. First session is introductory. Sessions 2, 3, and 4 are the ones you really want to listen to. And then session 5 is a review. Okay, so you can listen. You can listen to all 5 or just the 3 every day, 5 days a week. Start out with 30 days, then go 60, then go 90. You can get that for 30% off today. After that, it goes back to $97, which is still a great deal, and here's why. Let's say you listen to this and you have a job interview, you have a presentation, you have a meeting, a sales meeting, sales call, and you already know that if your confidence increases, your speech can instantaneously and immediately improve. Just immediately. People have experienced that. People have told me they've watched one of my videos and been fluent for a period of time. So I already know that this really does work. So imagine that you purchase this either at 67 or whatever it is, and 97, and you win one contract, you get a job, or you make a positive impression, automatically paid for itself many times over. So it's a matter of investing in yourself. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about that. I am going to go ahead and open up a poll, and I'll put this offer back up, but I want you to do this poll, and then I'm going to have Mona all right, so let's see. I'm not sure if you can see this poll. Mona, can you see a poll?
No, I cannot. Is it going to be near the chat box?
You said that you can see it?
I cannot see
You
it.
cannot. Okay, no problem. So, right, I'm not going to worry about the poll, but I am going to go ahead and give you an opportunity to say any wrap-ups that you need, if that's okay.
Okay. No, I cannot.
So, Mona, go ahead and share with us any final words that you might have, and anything that you might want to announce briefly, and then we'll wrap this up.
Okay. I cannot. Because I struggle so much with my speech, I have hurdles to overcome. And one of the hurdles, like Michael talked about, is my self-talk. And so I was introduced to his first audio session, which was the Impress, which helped me tremendously. Recently, I started listening to the passive learning, and it's really helped me tremendously. And if you're a part of the Facebook forum, I shared a recent story about me having to talk to a new employee during orientation. It was a one-on-one orientation, and I just needed that dose of motivation that I could actually talk well when I talked to that person. And I tell you what, it works. It really, really works. And so, and I've been listening to it every day, and I've been noticing a tremendous difference in the way that I think. And again, I don't know how it happens, but somehow my brain is being reprogrammed, and I can tell by the way that I'm speaking. And so it's really good to know that I don't have to worry about how I speak because the words are keep playing in my head over and over. It's really powerful, and I'm just so excited about everything that's happening to me. I'm also excited about the upcoming virtual conference that's going to be on September 20th, which is pretty much around the corner. And I'm sure Michael is going to share exciting information, not only about the mental trainer passive learning program, but about many other transformational speech coaching um, processes that he has brilliantly came up with. Um, Michael?
Okay, thank you. All right, I was just reading some of the chat messages, and I do apologize. Unfortunately, there's no way to really anticipate it because I have used this software before and it didn't work this way, but you got to do stuff like this. This is the way software works. And I heard a lot of people saying that they heard echoing, squeaky, that when I'm close to the mic it sounds good. When I step back, there's some problems with it. So I apologize for that. I believe the replay will be better. I believe it will be. And so we'll go ahead and you'll have access to the replay. And the next time that we do a webinar, I probably will have a different configuration, and the sound will definitely be better because you know I'm all about quality. But I appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. I want to affirm everything that Mona said. If you have any questions at all, please email me. Go to my website. There's a little box that pops up where you can contact me directly. And what happens is it sends me an email, and I'll send it back through the system so it doesn't get caught in spam and so forth. I put a link to join the Facebook group. If you need a link to that, or if you don't see it on the system someplace, then please feel free to email me and I'll send you a link. You want to join the Facebook group because it's encouraging. There are people in there going through this process. You can actually see in real time their successes and their struggles. And everything that Mona has said, I want to definitely affirm that. I'm not paying her, right? So she's here of her own volition, her own time, and just sharing with you her experiences. I will be training her, though, as one of my first coaches. So she will be coming on board as a coach. But at this time, when you hear her speaking, it's not because she's being paid. I just want you guys to know that. So, once again, I want to apologize if the sound was bad. I had to give this a try, but I do have some other alternatives to make the experience better. So if you came to this webinar and you're like, oh man, it's squeaking, it's echoing and stuff, don't worry about it. It'll be better. I believe the replay will probably be better. But if not, we'll do this again, okay? So, again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Thank you very much. And we're getting out early because I don't want to prolong this if the sound is not good. And we will see you guys in our Facebook group. Hopefully we'll see you at the conference. And hopefully you will take advantage of this offer here. And let me just see if I can make sure that this is the real deal, really does work, really is only for about 24 hours. Take advantage of it now. And I'll see you the next time, guys. Thank you very much.